Hi, I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings, and today I am up at the woods and we're going to be doing a little foraging. And in today's video, what we're going to be showing you is how to create a winter hanging basket. So basically you're going to be using evergreens and various things that you might be able to find in your garden right now to create a beautiful, you have your hanging baskets all summer long, so why not reuse them and have something beautiful hanging up there in the winter. So today that's what we're going to do, is we're going to show you how to create beautiful hanging baskets that can last you through the winter. But before I begin and head out into the woods today, you can see it's colder today. I've got my little ear covering on and double coats and such. It's really windy, even though it's a beautiful sunny day. But my hands, last time when I was out here, I forgot to take gloves along to protect my hands from the pine branches, and I was getting poked a lot. So today I have our Wonder Grip gloves. These are the nearly naked style. They've got really good movement for your fingers, so it's not like they're thick and bulky. So they're going to work good out trimming these branches. They also work good though too if you are planting up like your annual combinations containers. They work good for year-round essentially if you're digging in the dirt. I will put a link below if this is something you're interested in. We can send them to you from our online store. So nearly naked, the Wonder Grip gloves. Also, I took more of a compact size pruner today as opposed to that big long 3-foot one I was using the other day. And this one here is from the Pink Lady Tool Company. It's super sharp. I love the comfort handle on here. It's kind of like a foam handle, so it's really comfortable to use. So nice and small, I can fit it in my pocket. So this is what I'm going to be using today when I'm out trimming the branches. So we're quickly going to just speed through me out there getting the branches to get down to business, which is showing you how to create a beautiful winter evergreen hanging basket. So this is kind of a nice blue spruce, so I'm going to take just a few branches off of this because I think that blue will give kind of a neat texture in with all of the greens that I've cut so far. So we'll just take a few little tip cuttings. The other nice thing with blue spruce is it's very thick and full, so it does work really good when you're creating these evergreen porch planters or hanging baskets. But because this is kind of on the ish property line, I don't want to really strip it too much. I'm just going to take a few selective branches for my pots. All right, so this should be good. I'll cut it apart a little bit once we get inside and break them down into smaller pieces. Thank goodness for my Hisea Boots. It's a little mushy down in here, keeping me clean and dry. Done gathering the greens, we are back inside the greenhouse up here on the land, and it's a lot nicer in here. So it's not windy, even with the sun out a little bit, it's warming this space up really nicely. So I was able to get rid of all the coats. So we're going to go ahead and create 2 hanging baskets today. And these are just some of the various greens that we were able to find. Actually, this time out, I found a couple different types of evergreens, so that was kind of neat. So we'll add some of them in to this hanging basket planter. One thing to mention though is you can go ahead and use used soil in the hanging baskets. So if you have a hanging basket right now that has some dead plants in, just remove those dead plants, use that soil because it really is only there to stick your sticks into, so it's going to hold them in place. What we did is we wet the soil before we're going to start sticking the evergreens in place. Otherwise it's kind of fluffy and it doesn't really hold them nice and firmly. So by wetting the soil, it makes it more dense and things should stick into it better. Also, eventually, if the soil kind of stays moist, it'll be nice because it'll freeze here in Michigan and it'll kind of essentially freeze those branches right into place as well. So when creating a hanging basket, a lot of times you're kind of creating for a 360 view of the hanging basket. That's not my intention with the ones with the evergreens. So I'm creating them so that we'll be looking at it just from the front. The back side I really don't care about. So we've got various greens here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with looking for some that are a little bit more denser or fuller to be the background, so that way we don't see through it. And I know that blue spruce, which I was able to find, is a nice dense green. And in this case, it's got that nice blue tinge to it. So these branches are about 18 inches tall. And I think, we'll see here, that actually might be an okay length. It's going to be kind of like the height in this basket. I have to keep in mind too though, is that we have a hanger that this is going to hang onto, and I have to make sure the greens don't get in the way of the hanger. But I think we should be okay with what we have here and not need to worry about that. So we'll just go ahead and stick a couple of these in. And I'll tell you what, blue spruce smells so wonderful. It reminds me of Christmas. So that will be our back, kind of nice and full. Next, let's see what we've got here. There's just so many fun choices. I did cut them a little long, not knowing what length I was going to need them as I was going through. This particular one's got some pine cones on it, so that's kind of fun. So I'm going to just trim out kind of singular-ish branches and stick those in. One thing you will want is gloves when you are doing your evergreen planters, because some evergreens are a little bit more pokier than others, and it's not pleasant if you're constantly getting poked by those needles. Another thing is a lot of times you're going to have some sap that may come depending on how fresh your greens are, so it kind of keeps the sap off your hands as well. So these I'm just kind of trimming to about 12 or so inches. Kind of fun though that they got the pine cones, because that just adds just a little extra something to the look. Just gonna stick my remnants off to the side. I might need them later, so I don't want to get rid of them. And if you have a bunch of little pieces left, you might even want to create like a tabletop planter where you just need short little pieces. But that's up to you with what you have and what you want to do. So that's filling up really nice. All right, so I'm going to now switch over to another type of green. This one here is a little bit smaller needles. I think this is some type of a fir. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see what that looks like. It's kind of spiky, but maybe I'll stick that kind of in the middle and angle it off to the edge. The various different evergreens you can find, the more texture it adds to what you're creating. So the soil has been working really good, getting them stuck in there and holding in place. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead with some of this wispier stuff. And as I'm putting in, I'm not putting them all straight up and down. Some of them I'm kind of angling off to the side, and that just kind of creates a more sprawled out or spread out looking creation. Now I'm going to take a look at it from what you're seeing here a minute to see where I need to fill it in. Okay, definitely there are some spots that need to get filled in. I feel like right here feels like it's kind of a little sparse. I have to remember too that I've got various other things I'm going to be putting in here that will also fill this container in a bit. Here was something new and different that we found. This one is really dainty and airy feeling, so we'll stick some of that up front. We also have some evergreens that are more trailing, so those are going to go right up front so they can kind of dangle over the edge. All right, let me grab the dangling ones a minute. And I'm going to fill this in more because I do want a little bit more fullness and height through here. So these here, you can see how they kind of weep. These will go right up front and center because I want those to kind of be like my spiller. See how they just kind of nicely hang over. These I actually got from the greenhouse, so we don't have any of these up here on the land. So I did bring a couple of these from the greenhouse, knowing that I would want this in here. So these I'm kind of putting off to the left and off to the right. And then I got a little piece I cut off here. We'll go up in the front with it. There, just to kind of give that little bit of a draping feel. Now I don't like, this one is too long, so I broke it off and I'm just gonna stick it in so that it isn't quite so long. There we go. All right, one more spin for me to look to see where I need to add some stuff. Right here. This is a bare spot, so I'm gonna need just something a little bit fuller, I think, and a little longer. Grab one more of these and tuck it in there. There. I think that fills it out nicely. So now, actually, you know what? I forgot. I had these ones that were big and puffy. Gotta throw a few of those in because that's just gonna add some fun texture. I know I grabbed like 4 of them. Dig through my pile here. There we go. There. I don't know if it actually did anything, but I'm sure it added a little bit of texture. So now some of the things I brought from the greenhouse, I brought a bow, some little birch logs, because again, we got to remember this is a hanging basket. It's going to have a hanger. I also grabbed some balls that we can tuck in. Grab some dogwood. So this is the Arctic Fire yellow dogwood, along with Arctic Fire red dogwood. So I'm going to put a couple of those in. And these are very tall, so for a hanging basket, you don't need them this tall. But before I cut them, I'm going to just put it in to see what I think for height. So this yellow, I'm going to actually leave it because I don't have it on my hanger yet. I can always trim it shorter when I go to hang it up, but I can't make it longer. So I think I'm going to kind of go for that height, and we'll see how it does once we get them back to the Northern Michigan Garden Cottage. And that just adds a little bit of color into the container. Let's see, how many did I bring? We're just going to put 3 in there, just for a little something. I also brought some hydrangeas up. So these are hydrangeas we trimmed about a month and a half ago out of the garden. And I know they're going to be too long, so I'm just snapping it there a little bit. I'm going to put these towards the front. My first thought was, okay, one on this side, one on that side, because that's symmetrical. And for those of you who've watched me for any amount of time, you know that symmetry is kind of my thing. But I'm not going to go symmetrical on these because I feel like it's going to feel a little bit off with the symmetry. So I'm going to poke them kind of right next to each other, just off to the side a little bit. Now I have some various berries. So I was able to find some winterberry out in the marsh area. So that will add a nice splash of red. I also took from the garden center, we have a bush of blue holly, which is evergreen. So it's got the leaves on it with the red. So this is also an option. But I think for this planter here, I'm just going to use these winter berries and tuck them in like so. Let me give it a quick little look. Yeah, I think those look really nice. So now I also have these birch logs, and I'm going to stick it in. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it there or not, because, you know, sometimes you got to try things to see what you think. Now these are pretty wide, so they're a little bit harder to dig into that soil, especially once I have all the greens in. So I'm going to just kind of try to, maybe I can just set it in there. If it's set in far enough, that should be okay. So we'll just set that off to the side, and that kind of balances out the hydrangeas. They're not the same, but it kind of balances it out a little bit. So that looks pretty good. Oh, let's see. Do I want to go with the ornaments? We can always take them back if we don't want them. I don't know. What do you think? Ornaments or not? I think for now I'm going to leave them. I can always take them out if I change my mind later. But that just gives that nice splash of red. Remember, we're in Michigan here, so we do get a lot of snow. So at some point in the season, this is going to be covered in white snow. So any little pops of red that are poking through are going to be a benefit, because it's going to be what's going to give us the color. So I think this one looks pretty good. Sometimes when you mess around, it just, you know, too much becomes too much. So I think this is great. So let's go ahead and create the second basket. The second hanging basket we're going to create today is going to be in an entirely different area. So it does not need to match that first one that I created. Again, the soil has been moistened, so it's nice and firm that we can poke the evergreen branches into. Like I mentioned earlier, it's okay to use used soil because it's going to get thrown away anyways, and it's not giving the plants any nutritional benefit. So you don't need to worry about fresh soil that adds that nutritional benefit. So again, we're going to stick with some of our wider, more dense varieties first, which, like last time, we used the blue spruce in the back, because it's got just a nice thick canopy to it. Looks like that's all I got. So now we'll head in with this one here, which is a little bit longer branches, not quite as dense, but it's going to be a nice thriller, or give some nice height anyways. And I do have lots of that. That's the variety that's got some pine cones, so that's kind of fun. Just sticking those branches nicely down to as far as I can in that soil. That way they stay in place. You don't want the wind to blow them out. Not sure if I mentioned it before, but when you are doing this, sometimes you want to wear older clothing, just in case if I know I mentioned about sap, but just in case if the branches are giving off sap, you don't want to get all sticky. All right, we'll switch over to another variety here next. This one here, you can see it's kind of got like 5 branches. I'm just going to kind of pull them all up so it's easier to poke in. And then we'll let them just kind of spread themselves out. I'm just going to take a quick look here. Right now it just looks a little haphazard, but it'll be fine. I really think it's the things that you put in the basket to kind of adorn it that give it the character. That one smells really nice. Very fine fine leafed variety. All right, now I do have a couple here that dangle over the front, so I do want to have that going on. So I'm going to stick these in the front, kind of to go off, kind of put them on an angle so that they kind of dangle over the edge, off to the edges, if that made any sense. So this one's stem is a little long, so I'm going to tear that off. I'm going to use it. I'm going to cut it just a little shorter. Stick it still there in on the angle. And then this little piece I cut off, I'm going to stick in the front here. There we go. It's kind of giving the drapey feel. And let's see, what else do we got here? Oh yeah, the nice long needled one. We'll stick that in kind of towards the front. I think I've got another one somewhere. There we go. All right, let me make sure it looks full. I feel like we need, again, a little height right here. Feels like we're pretty consistent from planter to planter where we're needing that extra height. Or fullness anyhow. I think that gave it that little bit of height we needed. All right, so now let's look at what little elements I have for this one. Like I said, this is going to go in a different place than the first one we made, so they don't have to look alike. Let's see. For this one, I'm going to take the yellow twig dogwood and I'm going to put that in it. My first thought when I trimmed this stuff, I should tell you, is that I was going to strip all of these little branches off and just have it be a singular stick. But I'm kind of liking it in here because it just adds a little extra fullness to that yellow twig. Now I'm going to cut this one just a little shorter, and they seem kind of weird because one's full, one's straight, but I don't know. That'll look nice, I think. And for this one, I'm going to actually take the blue holly with the berries and stick that in. Kind of putting it right in the middle of the planter, and we're going to see how it will fan out. Kind of just blends in with all the other evergreens. I'm going to grab a few more. So I did trim just some little branches of this as well, where that was a big bundle. So I'm going to kind of go off to the edge. That way, and take this one here and tuck it off to the edge like that. So now we kind of got those the berries kind of dabbled throughout the container. Let's see. This one here, let's see, we're going to do a singular hydrangea, just one. Nip that to the side, and then I'm going to put the birch log on the other side to kind of balance it out. I'm not even sure if we'll see it again. Sometimes, yeah, I'm not liking how that looks, so I'm not going to do that. So actually, we are going to go with both hydrangeas. And I'm still going off to one side with them, not one on either side, like so. So I think that looks pretty good. Now with this one, I am going to put the bow on it to give it just a little something. So let me spin it around. When I do put the bow on, I have some paddle wire, green paddle wire that we use to kind of hold the bows together. And I'm just going to tie this paddle wire around. Hopefully I can find a nice evergreen branch that I can anchor it to. And you know what? Actually, that's not what I'm going to do. I am going to trim this twig here off of the holly berries, and I'm going to hook it onto this little trim, this little twig. Wrap it on there nice and tight, otherwise it will slide off. So I'm just twisting that wire really tight so it's hooked on well. There we go. Now I gotta fluff the bow again. All right, get it all nice and fluffed. And then I'm going to just set the bow here off to the opposite side of those hydrangeas to kind of balance that color a little bit. There we go. And now that's ready to be hung. All right, so after looking at this basket, there was just a few things I wanted to change up, and that's the beauty when you're creating like this, is you can just easily pull things out. So what I'm going to do is I put the blue spruce in the back, but you really can't see it. So I'm going to pull that out and move it forward because I want these little dabbles of blue to kind of poke through. So stick it there. I think you can see the blue a little bit better with it being there. And then I've got another one. This one I might have to trim down a little bit, but I'm going to stick it in first to see. And I'm kind of putting these more towards the middle of the basket. This is a 16-inch basket, if you're curious on what size basket we're using. So let me just take a look. Yeah, so now you're seeing a lot more of that blue shine through, and it's just kind of breaking up the green color a little bit more. So since I took those from the back of the basket, I got to get some things tucked back in there again. I'm going to see if this fits. It might be a little too tall. I can trim it down if it is. Yeah, that's going to be too tall once we get the basket hung up. So I'm just going to nip about 3 inches off. Stick that in. Okay, so you saw what I did there. I took the tail off and I tried sticking it in like that. That's not going to work. I have to have individual branches because then they can poke in much easier. So by getting rid of this little nub that was kind of preventing me, we've got sharp ends now, or not sharp, but pointy ends. This is going to make it so I can stick them in easier. Yeah, now they're staying. All right, let's see, do we need a little bit more height there in the back? I have to be careful with the height because remember, hanging basket. I think this will probably be good. Just adding this little one in here just gives it just a little bit of height that it needed to kind of go behind these dogwood branches. Yeah, so I think that should be better. So like I said, it's a 16-inch basket. If you're curious what size this one is, you could go anywhere down to a 10 or 12 inch if that's what you have. Use what you have. No point to buy a new one. Recycle and reuse what you have currently. If you have any questions or comments on how to create an evergreen hanging basket, feel free to leave it in the comments below. We always love to read any comments that you leave. If you're new to our station, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.